As the great fictional soldier I'm about to mention once said, to survive a war, you've got to become war. And this is where these two entries come in. Yeah, that's right, the legacy of the Vietnam War hero back in action like you've never seen him before. First things first, we're diving into Rambo for the NES by Acclaim and Pack-In Video. Basic plotline. If you've seen First Blood Part 2, which I highly suggest taking a look at, you should already be familiar with the plot. War hero gets released from prison on account of his superior, Colonel Troutman, portrayed by Richard Crenna, God rest his soul, and is tasked with rescuing POWs back in Vietnam. So he gets transported to his base where Troutman's waiting, as well as two of his other partners, Erickson and Murdoch. That's that Cobra Kai douchebag from Karate Kid, and Charles Napier, may he also rest in peace, respectively. So you talk with them, and that's where your mission begins. Now getting to the basic gameplay, it's similar to that of Castlevania 2 Simon's Quest, which is at the same time, as well as Zelda 2 The Adventure of Link. In fact, the overall layout of the game is reminiscent of the latter. You just go from different points. Of course, there's north and south markers, going from point A to point B, killing enemies that are in your way, which can get repetitive as all hell. But you have to complete certain objectives, like meeting up with a VC contact in order to get to certain parts of the jungle to rescue POWs, and various other tasks. Getting to the enemies? Seriously, what the hell do they have to do with Rambo? I mean, hell, Godzilla would be less out of place than Timbuktu. Going back to the Zelda 2 comparisons, every time you hit an enemy, a number pops up, indicating how much experience you've gained. As well as when you go into caves, you need a lantern in order to light the way. Because when you get in there, you know, it's all blue, giving off the dark ambiance. Anyways, aside from the weapons, you also have a potion as well, but you only have 5, so use them sparingly. Despite your efforts to prepare for an enemy attack, there appears to be a response lag. More often than not, you will get your ass handed to you in a saucer if you're not careful, thanks to the convoluted ass control scheme. Luckily you have unlimited continues, but who gives a shit? And don't get me started on the fucking password system either. It's about as long, if not longer, than say, the aforementioned Simon's Quest. The graphics as well as the music leave a hell of a lot to be desired. Nothing really stands out, and neither does Rambo, in-game or during those talking scenes. I mean, he doesn't look a damn sight like Stallone, despite how well Peck and Video tried to capture him, but they failed miserably. Same with the likenesses of the other characters, Troutman, Kobau, Murdoch, Erickson. Need I go any further? Final verdict, you're better off with Zelda 2. Stick with the next Rambo game I'm about to discuss. Avoid this travesty like a quarantine. Exhibit B, Rambo 3 on Sega Genesis. Released as a launch title alongside Altered Beast, Revenge of Shinobi, Golden Axe, and the like, this is based on the third entry in the Rambo series. It's not as great as the others. Again, if you've seen the film, you should already be familiar with the plot. Troutman gets kidnapped by commies, and it's your task to save him and all of Afghanistan. Basically, it's your free-roaming run-and-gun, similar to the other Rambo game for the Sega Master System, or hell, the Ikari Warrior series by SNK Playmore. Aside from moving in all 8 directions, obviously, depending on your preferred configuration, most Genesis games during the console's heyday really love to pull that benefit out of its ass. A, B, and or C lets you fire off old Lone Wolf's trademark machine gun, as well as select between and or use one of 3 secondary weapons, and these include a knife for close-up melee attacks, not to mention a bow with explosive arrows for distant attacks, and detonable time bombs, both of which have limited supplies, and must be used in necessary moderation. About the machine gun, Rambo can fire it off in a sporadic pattern in its neutral position, as well as straight whilst running, in one of the 8 main directions. It also assists you, as does the knife, with replenishing your aforementioned time bombs and explosive arrows throughout the course of the game. Weapon breakdown aside, this game offers everything a true Rambo experience should have, exterminating every adversary in your way as possible, and leaving no damn stone unturned. Considering the tight yet fluid controls this game has to offer, in full honesty, no understatement intended, it's 25 trillion times better than that ignominious, mind-numbing, horrifying as hell NES hullabaloo of horseshit. At certain points of the game, you'll end up finding yourself in a wide yet baffling maze, which can get perplexing at first to adapt to. But over time, you shouldn't have too much trouble figuring out the overall landscape and its proximities. In between and or at the end of certain missions, there lies a boss in which Rambo faces off against an enemy chopper, tank, or more than one of these, and or a 2-in-1 duet of both. And they can get very tricky to pull off the exploding bow and arrow's trajectory, even after you power the damn thing up. Take note, at the end of every mission, the bonus points you accumulate depends on the time and duration you took in completing it. Waste way too much time and you don't get diddly shit. And in true Contra fashion, you get hit once and it's an instant life loss. Lose all of them and it's an instant game over. You only get probably a few limited continues. Graphically, despite the game's overall visual presentation being minimal, they aren't too shabby even after 1/4 of a century, especially most of the explosions and even the likeness of the Lone Wolf, both in-game as well as the opening cutscene. I mean, geez, crow, some of the film stills are modest looking even to my taste. As far as the music and sound, in full honesty, I might just have to end up looking the other damn way about the soundtrack, but they're actually not half bad. Same story with the sound effects. And don't even get me started with Rambo's yelling soundbite every time he gets wasted. Sure, there are other tracks that most might find rather unfitting and irrelevant to the source material, but it's all around catchy and intense in certain parts. And finally, about the replayability, what I highly suggest more than anything is memorizing most of the mazes as best as you can, as well as pinpoints every enemy attack and location. And when it comes to completing every mission, I suggest practicing doing so in a timely fashion, like in the real world, obviously, without getting your ass snuffed way too many times. And should you decide or intend to beat it, the average duration comes to about a half hour, about 25 to 30 minutes tops. In summation, considering both Rambo games, for the NES, as mentioned before, while it's a somewhat unique, if not very mind-blowing to be frank, clone of Zelda 2, Most of its overall presentation and aspects are nothing short of unnerving and imbalanced, to be completely honest. And to top it all off, a total disgrace to the Lone Wolf's immortal legacy! Now as for Rambo 3 on Genesis, despite some cons I may or may not have pointed out regardless of any aspect, it's a near flawless game, and you owe it to yourself to try this high adrenaline ride of a challenge out. And consider this my final reiteration, stick with the Genesis entry, but whatever you do, withdraw from that infamous stigma of an NES entry. On their respective consoles, they're the law. Out here, or in this case off of them, it's me, and they sure as fucking shit better not push it, or I'll give them a war they won't believe. Anyhow, pointless quoting aside, until then, this is the Hardcore Retro God signing off.